Hello, welcome to Online Crime. My name is Paddy Magrane, and it's my great pleasure tonight to be interviewing Doug Johnstone, who, if I've got this right, is the author of 11 novels.
Yes, my 12th one just came out in ebook a couple of days ago.
Okay.
So it's not out in paperback yet. So you're kind of half right, yeah. Close enough.
Brilliant. So with the 10th, the reason I'm here to talk about the 11th and 12th, but would the 10th have been this book, Breakers?
Yes,
okay.
That is right, I think. Yes, correct.
I just want to bring up Breakers briefly because it's kind of in my top 10 ever. I absolutely love this book. So I kind of moved on to 11 and 12, kind of hoping for the best, and I'm absolutely delighted to say that these are absolutely fantastic novels. So the first one is A Dark Matter, and the follow-up is The Big Chill. And they are novels that follow 3 generations of the same family, the Skelfs, who are unusually both private investigators and funeral directors. That's
yeah.
What say?
And, yeah, that's good. I did a radio interview yesterday, and Janet Forsyth burst out laughing when she read that line. So I don't know. I sometimes get that reaction. I don't know. That's good or bad. People go, "Oh my God, they're field directors and private investigators." Well, it's like, well, that's your pitch right there.
Yeah, it's a great pitch, and I have to say that I am halfway through The Big Chill, but the thing that strikes me about both, the first thing that strikes you is literally the thing that hits you in the first chapter. They have 2 of the most epic opening chapters of any books I've read.
No pressure for the third one in the series then, yeah, is that right?
Get cracking. So I'm talking too much, but I want to just start with a question, which is basically that crime novels are obviously, I mean, I'm sure there's probably one that doesn't, and I'm going to be called out on it, but they always feature a death, either at the beginning, or sometimes I can think of ones that kind of work towards the death. But yours not only feature a death, but death is kind of a thread that runs through the entire book, and that's quite a tough.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on, Doug.
Yeah, it's sort of So with that basic premise, death is kind of baked into the DNA of the whole story. Like, you can't get away from it. It's on every page, and it's not just the fact that they have to deal with funerals and all the rest of it. It's their own personal grief, because the first book opens when the 3 women are having a sort of informal cremation for the previous matriarch for the family. So they've got their own grief and their own loss to cope with. So in that way, it is absolutely embedded in everything that runs through the book. And then, of course, there's the other stuff. It's interesting to say about crime novels and deaths, but I think my film and TV agent got back to me about, I think it was one of these books. It might have been The Big Chill, where she actually said, "You do know there's no murders in this, don't you?" And I was like, "Oh, really?" And she was like, "Is that a problem?" And I was like, "No, I don't think so. Do you think it's a problem?" She was like, "No, I don't think it's a problem." But I mean, there might be. I can't remember now if it's one of the other books. But anyway, it's something that didn't even really concern me. It's not even in I wasn't even thinking about that, because there was so much death in the pages everywhere else. And there are plenty of deaths. There just maybe isn't any murders, or there's some debate about whether people are murdered or not, I think.
Yeah. And death
that clears up that muddy picture. Sorry.
Yeah, it's really clear now. Thank you for that. But I'm really comfortable with the amount of death in it. You know, the amount of mentions of death and the many glimpses of corpses you get, because I think, and you tell me what you think about this, but it's both. This is getting kind of, I'm probably disappearing up somewhere now, but I would say it's both a meditation on death and also on how to live. Would that be fair?
Yeah, that's your psychotherapy coming through there, Paddy. Isn't that nice? Always working. Well, I mean, the background. I mean, some of the background for this is that I worked as a writer in residence at a funeral directors for 6 months 4 years ago. Long story short, the upshot of that was that production of a non-fiction book, a very short non-fiction book, which was not widely published, but the company have kept it. And they produced hundreds of copies, and they hand them out to staff and new starts and stuff like that. It was really interesting. But that was kind of the remit for what we did in that when I was working there, was to give the staff a bit of time and space to consider their attitude to death and how working with death every day affected their attitudes to life and how to live. So the actual title of that little book was called Living in the Face of Death. So you hit the absolute nail on the head there. And one of the funny things about that residency was that there was a running joke with the staff. So I interviewed them and I'd sort of work share, I'd sort of job shadowed them and stuff. So I did all the things that are in the book, all the sort of different tasks. But there's a running joke from the staff saying, "Oh, you'll get loads of stuff for your books here, like loads of like fodder for your books." And I was kind of saying, well, no, I don't think I will, because crime novels inherently, like all fiction, like, you know, thrives on conflict and tension. And the whole point of what funeral directors do is that they try and diffuse conflict and tension at incredibly stressful times for the bereaved. But gradually it's stewed away, and so there aren't any. I don't think there are any major conflicts in the books based on the funerals, but the funerals are like a backdrop, which makes them, meditate on the death that they're faced with and how they're living with their own lives in the face of that stuff. We got very deep very quickly there, Paddy, didn't we? That was good.
Yeah, sorry. I'm going to try and really lighten it up now.
It's not easy with books about death, is it?
I mean, the thing I should have said at the beginning is these books are not, you know, they're darkly comic. I think that's not my phrase. That's someone else has described them as, and they're really joyous. And I didn't have a problem at all with the many glimpses of, you know, Archie kind of embalming or, you know, cold storage. To me, it was just, you know, it was all kind of really necessary background. Now I'll move on to something now that might even be a kind of more difficult question, but your three lead characters are women, you know, so Dorothy and her daughter Jenny and her daughter Hannah. And, you know, male writers have in recent years it's been a while now, but they got a huge amount of flack for their portrayal of women in books. So you took on something that potentially is like a bloody minefield, and yet those three women are beautifully drawn and feel kind of whole and strong and full of personality and distinctly their own. But, you know, it seems like quite a kind of tough thing to do. So what kind of made you, you know, so, I mean, I can't really give it away, but what made you kind of get the men out of the picture and devote all your energy to these three women?
Well, first of all, let me love the irony of one white man telling another white man how well he writes women. That's excellent. I do like that.
Right now.
Yeah. Well, it's very nice of you to say. I had written central female characters in the books before, 2 or 3 times. And it wasn't really something I thought about at the start, actually. In fact, the second time I did it, I mentioned to a female friend of mine, "Oh, I'm writing this book and it's a young woman as the main character." And she went, "Oh, is it? That'll be interesting," in a sort of sarcastic way. And I was like, absolutely put the shitters up me. And I was like, "Oh my God, will it be? Oh no, nightmare." And then I started to panic. But I don't, you get this question quite a lot, especially with these books, because there's 3 women. But that, I didn't think I was doing anything outrageously crazy. And I understand that there is a little thread of male writers who perhaps who write women as fantasy figures or whatever, as opposed to actually like real rounded women. You know, the idea of like writing women who keep admiring their breasts in the mirror, that sort of stuff. And that sort of stuff has always bugged me, in the same way all the alpha male stuff has always really bugged me in books, because it's so sort of wish fulfillment and like male fantasy stuff that it just seems outrageously stupid. I can't understand why things like that get published very often. So I didn't deliberately want to go consciously in the other direction, but I just thought I wanted to write these women that were, like you say, as kind of normal and rounded as possible and distinct. And it was a very deliberate idea to have them from different generations. So I reckon Jenny is probably the easiest one for me to write, because she's around about my age. She's a few years younger than me, not much. But writing from a 70-year-old's point of view and a 20-year-old's was a bit more of a challenge. But it's Paddy, what we do is, our job is to put ourselves inside the heads of other people and see what it's like to be them. And I think if you, I totally understand questions about cultural appropriation and all these kind of things, and men writing women and women writing men. But my sort of basic feeling about that is, look, if you if you do your research and treat your characters and their situations with empathy and respect, then then you can write about whatever you want, and if you get it wrong, I would be the first to hold up my hands if there was anything wrong. And some of my first readers are women. The vast majority of my readers out in the world are female, and my editor's a woman, and she would be, my editor, and she would be she wouldn't be quiet about speaking up if there was a problem or anything that didn't seem true to her. So I feel like I've done okay.
No. I hope I made it clear from the start of that question that you've done a blinding job. The other thing that I noticed certainly about A Dark Matter, and already to some extent about The Big Chill, is that some of the men are real assholes, and the book is there is maybe a thread about fidelity and about marriage. I'm just kind of wondering where I should remind everyone who's listening that this is definitely a crime novel, and there's a really brilliant procedural aspect to this, and a blinding resolution, certainly to A Dark Matter. But just this kind of thread that ran through it too, which was about kind of fidelity. Would that be fair?
Yeah, again, it's not, I think, I don't know how you work, but these things never really seem all that conscious when you're writing. I think there was definitely a feeling in the first book, in A Dark Matter, that the sort of Me Too movement would definitely influenced it. It was really at its kind of peak, or when I was kind of reworking it and stuff. And again, that wasn't conscious, but I noticed it when I went to redrafting it. And in fact, I had to tone down some of that stuff a little bit, because I think it had got a little bit slightly polemical. Yeah. And I think that's fair to say in the first book, about men, and there is this idea about it's not really about fidelity as much as it is about power. It's about men, having this idea that they can just do what they want, and with unattributable, with no consequences. And that not being the case for women. And I just wanted to just kind of, again, I was interested in how the different takes on it are, like from different generations. I think that's very interesting. I get the feeling, I hope, that Hannah's generation, sort of, millennials and 20-somethings, are much less willing to put up with that kind of stuff in their men than the women of perhaps my generation were, and of the older generation, I think. Perhaps because I feel like some of the structural misogyny is starting to get chipped away at a little bit, hopefully. And so it wasn't a conscious decision to put the men at the background. This was just quite clearly a women's story from start to finish. So, and the fact that bad things happen to them that are done by men is just sadly a reflection of real life, very much.
Yeah. And actually, what you said there about some of Hannah's generation, basically just not even being a tolerable currency for them is absolutely communicated in the book. So I'm getting really carried away now, as if everyone's listening kind of read the book. But it's definitely true that Jenny, the woman in the middle of the three, is very acutely aware, or that's what I felt, of Hannah's position and what she would expect of men in society. So that's, you've absolutely communicated that. I'm going to just move on to another little kind of, this is a light, oh God, this is probably going to be quite a heavy point too. But basically, I've obviously read these books. I've kind of read 1.5 of these books in lockdown, and basically I've been sort of like, part of reading them and like created this kind of massive yearning in me to just be sitting on my arse lolling in the sunshine on, is it the meadows that in front of?
Yeah. Brunsfield Links is right next to the Skelf house, and then the meadows is right next door to that, which is where Hannah's flat is. Yeah, there's just this lovely feeling of, particularly amongst the students, of just like dicking around and doing what they want, and kind of, and this sense that they're kind of out playing frisbee or mucking around with dogs and stuff. And there's also these really nice scenes where a character called Thomas, who's this Scandinavian, no, is that right? Scandinavian? Yeah, he's Swedish, yeah.
Yeah, Swedish policeman meets Dorothy to kind of for tea at this place called, is it Soderbergh?
Soderbergh, yeah.
Yeah. And I've never before thought, God, I'd just love to have a cup of tea and a Danish pastry at a cafe like this. It just created this kind of craving in me for, to be sort of outside and enjoying all the stuff that we took for granted before March 22nd. But one of the other things that that obviously you could create that anywhere in any city, but there's something about Edinburgh that you paint Edinburgh so kind of tenderly and stuff. And can you imagine, it's like a love letter to the city, but can you imagine sort of setting it anywhere else? Would you have ever dreamed of setting it anywhere else?
I wouldn't have done for this project. I didn't. I kind of, my relationship with Edinburgh is quite interesting. I think in the fiction. I've lived here for the vast majority of my life now, for over 30 years. Although I didn't grow up here, but I didn't write about Edinburgh to begin with. The first 3 books were set in other places. And I shied away from it a little bit because Edinburgh is a very well mapped city in terms of literature. Ian Rankin's Edinburgh, Muriel Sparks, Alexander McCall Smith's Urban Welsh. There's all these different versions of Edinburgh. But I thought, well, it's stupid. I've got all this, I've got all the experience, and my experience of Edinburgh is different from anyone else's. So why not use it? And since then, I've kind of done about half in Edinburgh and half in other places, or a little bit more. But this, I knew deliberately from the get-go that I wanted to write more than one book, and I wanted to be somewhere that I knew really well. You're absolutely right in that thing you said, that it's that these books are love letters to Edinburgh. They absolutely are. In all its like warts and all kind of glory. And Breakers was a very Edinburgh book, but it's a very different kind of Edinburgh.
Yeah.
But I was very deliberately writing about. That's a nice part of town, Bruntsfield and the Meadows and this kind of student area, and you can see the castle and you can see Salisbury Crags, and there's just so much space. And it was really. I know exactly what you mean about. That feeling when you're reading it during lockdown, because I was doing the sort of copy edits and like proofreading it, and I was like absolutely yearning to go out. And I'm writing the first draft of the 3rd book, and it's really quite problematic because I'm having to write about places. And normally I would just like close the laptop and get in my car or get on a bus and go out 20 minutes walk to wherever it is and have a look around, but I can't do that. So I'm furiously checking Google Maps for everything to make sure nothing's changed. And I've you're back.
Yeah. I'm sorry, you were saying.
I think I'd finished.
Oh. Yeah, I'm getting a message saying my internet connection is unstable, which pretty much speaks volumes about Devon. So just in case we're kind of running out of time, what can so there's a 3rd book so you're talking about kind of copy editing a 3rd book. Would there be a
No. I was copy editing the 2nd one at the start of lockdown. I'm now on a first draft of the 3rd one, which I was really surprised because I got into writing it really quickly, and I found that to be very therapeutic. Paddy, that I had a stroke at the start of March, a couple of weeks before lockdown actually, and I was very lucky in one sense that it could have been a lot worse. My recovery's been very good, but I was very unlucky in another sense because I don't have any risk factors. It was just the consultant sort of shrugged in the hospital and said, "Yeah, it happens," which is nice. But I got into writing the first draft of the new book quite quickly actually, and I really enjoyed it. And I found that it was doing that stopped me because at the start of lockdown, it's kind of psychologically everybody went a bit crazy, I think, before we got used to it, which is understandable. And I was finding that daily routine of sitting down with these characters, these 3 women, and making stuff up in a sort of fictionalized Edinburgh to be really helpful. I don't know how this book's going to, I'm at this sort of almost 3/4 stage. So I was in the doldrums. I'm kind of almost out the doldrums now. I just want to get to the end. But there's so much going on in this 3rd book. It's stupid. It's going to be, I don't know. I don't know if it's all going to work, but I don't know. I don't know what to say. It's going to be nuts, even compared to these 2.
It's quite nice that the way you spoke about that was really lovely. So essentially, what you're saying is that so you're faced with these kind of two extraordinary situations that you could never have predicted. One is that you're recovering from a stroke, and then suddenly we're all kind of lockdown is inflicted on all of us, and actually what you're saying is that essentially Dorothy, Jenny and Hannah kind of helped you find a way forward, and I guess kind of like quite good in the stroke recovery process too.
Yeah, I found yeah, that's quite an interesting way of putting it. Yeah, I found just the routine of it. I mean, for about a month after I had my stroke, I didn't really do much. I sort of slept and took medication and tried to walk in a straight line and get to the toilet in time. But I mean, very quickly after that, my sort of balance and coordination and everything else sort of came back. And I found normally I spend quite a lot of time planning books. And I'd done some planning for this third one, but not really enough. But I couldn't stand the idea of sitting planning stuff when I could just be writing. I kind of like, it's an absolute cliche to have sort of life-altering situations like a stroke or a heart attack or whatever, and then think, oh, every moment's precious, I must, blah, blah, blah. But there was a little bit of clarity about life. Sort of, I wasn't struck suddenly by lightning, I need to get on and stop wasting my life and do something proper. But there was an element of really just throwing myself into it and realizing, I'm enjoying writing this book. I really enjoyed writing these Skelf books, actually, a lot more than I think I have enjoyed some other books. And because kind of it's facile to say it, but they're such good company, when you're in them, and they're not always nice, obviously, and that would be very boring. But there's such interesting people to be writing about, and I think that's what people have liked about the books. I mean, no one ever remembers a book for years time because of a great plot twist, but they'll remember like great characters, I think.
Yeah,
so I mean, I've created some that are worth it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, in the middle of lockdown, we're looking for a number of things. I mean, we're looking for a whole load of complex things from our fiction and our kind of TV consumption, our film consumption. But I have to say that, I can easily imagine sitting down for either a kind of quite a chunky whiskey or a cup of tea or whatever with all three of those characters. They're genuinely, they're complex, and they're not always lovely, but they're, and they're kind of angry, and they're full of a full range of emotions, but they're definitely good company. So no, I think you're absolutely right there. The one last thing I was going to say is that actually, the other way I follow you, I know, is via your jogging, and that's been a real sort of key part of your recovery, because it kind of obviously sometimes we kind of share those kind of routes and stuff, and I'm pretty astounded by how fast you can get around 5K. I'm quite impressed by that.
Well, I was, I mean, after the first, the doctor said to me in hospital, basically after 2 weeks, try and get back to your normal levels of, because I was pretty fit and active beforehand, played football a lot and go running and stuff like that. And so I did. I mean, the first, I was just basically walking round the corner and back to begin with. But I very quickly got up to running a little bit. And I was never, you're very kind, Paddy, but I used to be fast. And then I was slow. And I've kind of gradually got back into it. And I'm now, I think part of it is just regularly doing it. Again, it's that routine thing. So I make sure I do it. I mean, it's twice a week. I go out twice a week and do 5K. And I managed to get within, I don't know, half a dozen runs. I got to faster than I was before I had my stroke, which was a bit crazy. And I've now settled down a little bit to around the 26 minute mark for 5K. But I don't know, there's plenty faster than me. But part of it is that I live very close to the beach in Portobello in Edinburgh, so my runs I always just run along the prom and get a bit of sea view. I love the sea, and I have a tradition that every publication day I go down to the beach and just spend some time at the seaside, usually with a beer or something. But it's a great excuse, and the running's fine. I mean, I won't bore you with the details. There are still some ongoing tests to do with my stroke, but I'm feeling honestly as fit as I ever was, which is great.
Yeah, that's absolutely great news. I think we're probably sort of coming to the end of this, but I would want to urge anyone who kind of listens to this to read these two absolutely beautiful, to be honest, if they haven't read Breakers, I'd urge them to start with that, because it's such a fantastic, moving book. I mean, I absolutely loved it. But then, yeah, get on to The Dark Matter and then The Big Chill, because they're both fantastic and they're great company, and it's great spending time with Dorothy, Jenny and Hannah, and absolutely, and the plots are fantastic and kind of complex and interwoven and stuff. So I have to say, Doug, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you this evening. I'm saying this evening, but I think this will go out a kind of early evening, so please don't judge me for drinking wine at this stage in the day. Yeah, it's been a great pleasure.
It's 8 o'clock in the morning, Paddy. Come on, you mad alky.
Yeah, well, it's lockdown, isn't it?
Wait for breakfast.
Yeah, we've all gone bonkers. Anyway, Doug, thanks so much for your time.
Oh, cheers, Paddy. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, bye-bye.